Shipping on the railroad is one of my favorite things to do. I got in on the last part of railroad shipping. I was in my mid-20s, I guess, when the railroad era ended and trucks took over. Trucking's fine. And it's a lot easier, a lot better, because the truck takes the cattle right to the pasture. And if you don't have a set of pens in your pasture, you drag your portable chute there and chain it to the back of that semi, lift up the gate, and the cattle are turned loose right in the pasture. In the old days, they'd be unloaded from the train here in Matfield Green, up at Bazaar, down at Cassidy, and have to be driven 10, some of them 10, 15, 20 miles to the pasture. When it's time to ship cattle, with double stocking yearlings, you don't string it out. If you put all the cattle in late April, you take all of them out in late July. All at the same time. In the railroad era, say you got 1,000 head of cattle in this big old pasture, 5,000 acre pasture. I know of one, I think it's still a 5,000 acre pasture. They might have cut it down some, east of Cassidy away. So you'd run in 1,000 of those big old Texas steers in the spring. Then along about late July, you'd go out there with a crew and you'd round up all those cattle, put them on top of a hill, put them in a corner, and maybe the foreman had come up from Texas. These cattle had all come from Texas. In those early days, they all came from Texas. They have some from New Mexico, most from Texas. And maybe the foreman had been sent up to help cut out the fat ones. Maybe the commission man from Kansas City had come down to help cut out the fat ones. Maybe the pasture man or one or two others he designated. Well, go into this herd, you got these, I don't know, say 500 head, more than that, I forget. Anyway, however many I said, 1,000 head of cattle. You'd round them all up and you'd hold them in this corner, and the men on the cutting horses, the men designated by the cattle owner, by the Texas foreman, would go in there and they'd cut out just the fattest ones. Remember, they came in about 45 to a stock car, they're going to leave at 25. If the commission company in Kansas City has said, we need 100 head of cattle, you're going to cut out 4 loads, 100 head from this herd of 1,000. And the 2 or 3 men on their cutting horses are going to cut those out. Everyone else is going to hold that herd there, except 3 or 4 of us kids, that was back when I was a kid, are going to hold the cut, it was called. This is the least exciting part of it. The ones that cut out, you put over here, and you got to keep them separate from going back in the herd or from wandering off in the pasture. Not much fun. The people in cutting out the cattle are having a good time. Sometimes the cutter wouldn't just bring out 1 or 2 he wanted, he'd bring out, get that one in the middle, or I just want the roan, turn the others back. And you'd do that. My dad and my uncle would do that for 4 or 5 times, and if he kept doing it, they'd just throw them all back at him until he just brought the one that he wanted. A man named Jake Jordan was the foreman for Weller McCann down around Victoria, Texas, and he was an interesting guy, short guy, wore those little short top Texas boots, those little Boss of the Plains, silver belly, short brim Texas hats, Stetson hats, and they wouldn't bring a horse up. They'd borrow a horse, a cutting horse from somebody. And he, that day, had one steer had cut around on him, and that horse, good cutting horse, cut around on him, and Jake went off, threw him off. Back up at Opal's Cafe, we were eating dinner after we got the cattle in the railroad pens, and Jake's wife was there too, and Jake was laughing about what happened to him. He wasn't, his pride wasn't hurt that bad. He said, boy, so old Brownie is really working there. He just cut right out from under me. I hit the ground, and Jake's wife said, Jake, that horse could have telegraphed you 2 weeks ago what he was going to do, and you'd have still hit the ground. So, yeah.